Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Findlay, and I'm going to be handing over to Jane Rosengrave, who will be delivering a Welcome to Country.
Thanks for that, Carly. My name's Jane, and I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the Wurundjeri people, to the traditional custodies of this land, where we are meeting upon today, for its elders and past and present, and even for the self-advocacy people who have passed away and who are still here on Aboriginal land. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. There are so many amazing Aboriginal writers that have been telling stories for over 60,000 years, and I encourage you to go and read and buy and borrow their books. Just a few of those people are Dion Beasley, who is in Growing Up Disabled in Australia. He's an illustrator, Tara June Winch, and Tony Burt, who just became Miles Franklin's shortlistees this week, and also Anita Heiss and Ellen Van Neven. So go and buy their books, go borrow them, go read their work, because it's so important. Gayle, did you want to add anything?
Oh, you can go and buy my books.
Sorry, go buy Gayle Kennedy's books as well. Gayle is an amazing Aboriginal writer as well, and we're here today to talk about growing up disabled in Australia. It's a book out next year. It's by me. It's edited by me, but Jane and also Gayle are two of the contributors in it, and it is part of the Growing Up series with Black Ink. I am going to ask Gayle and Jane to introduce themselves, and then I will introduce myself as well. Do you want to do it, Gayle?
Yes, my name's Gayle Kennedy. I'm a member of the Wongaybon clan of the Nyampa-speaking nation of New South Wales, and I'm an author and a public speaker and a wheelchair user as a result of polio as a child. I now have post-polio syndrome. And I'm meeting with you today on the land of the Gadigal people in Sydney, New South Wales.
Amazing. And do you want to tell us about some of your books, Gayle?
Yes, my very first book is called Me, Ant-Man and Fleabag, and it won the David Uniapan Award in 2006. And I've written 10 graphic novels for children for Oxford University Press, plus a novel for Oxford University Press. And I'm in lots of different anthologies for Currency Press, Penguin, Edinburgh Review, quite a lot of others. And I do a lot of public speaking. So I'm one of the lucky people that are managing to make a living from writing, which is in of itself amazing. So
yes, yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gayle. What about you, Jane?
My name's Jane, and I'm from Yorta Yorta tribe. That's my tribe, Yorta Yorta, and I was one of the people that were taken off my family so young, put into institutions, and been sexually abused, physical abuse, traumatised, and I've even done heaps of DVDs as well on bungee jumping, lawyers and love before my brain surgery, because I had brain surgery in 2004. And I've done other DVDs with Reinforce and Saru and Amida, and about the hidden lives for children who were taken off their families, put into institutions, so they told their stories on what happened, and even been through domestic violence as well. So now I'm living on my own, and I'm a strong self-advocacy woman, a powerful one, and I'm as free as a bird, and you only live once on this land. You're under the ground a lot longer than what you are alive, so make the most of your life.
Good advice.
And this is probably my 6th or 7th Emerging Writers Festival. I love being involved in this festival. I've been attending it since I moved to Melbourne 17 years ago. And I'm a writer. I write for the media. I've written for the ABC, SBS, The Age, Sydney Morning Herald, most recently CNN, which is pretty exciting. And I also have written a memoir called Say Hello, and I was in Growing Up African in Australia. I got asked to write for Growing Up African in Australia, as I have African heritage. And as a result of that, I pitched Growing Up Disabled in Australia, and I said to my agent, I've been asked to write for this book. Can we, perhaps do Growing Up Disabled as well? And we did. We had 366 people submit their stories, and I had to choose them. Out of them, I had to choose about 45 people to be included in the book. It was a really hard decision. Most people have written their story, but for someone like Jane and also Jordan Steele John, so you're in big company there. I interviewed Jane for her story, and also Jordan was interviewed by a university professor for his story. We've got people in this book like we've got Elle Gibbs, we've got Isis Holt, who is a Paralympian, we've got Eliza Hull, who is an amazing musician and broadcaster. Elle Gibbs works at People with Disability Australia, and she's telling her story for which she doesn't often do. There is also Dion Beasley, who is an amazing illustrator. He's working with Joanna Bell in telling an excerpt of Too Many Cheeky Dogs. He is in Alice Springs, I believe. We've also got Kath Duncan, Yvonne Fain, Fran Henke, Carly Jane Metcalf. There's a girl that's still growing up, as is Isis Holt, but another girl that's still growing up is Lucy Carpenter. We also have Tully Ziegler, Jasmine Sheriffs. Oh, so many people that you know and people that you don't know, but you're going to know better through this book. And it was really important to me to get a lot of different stories, to show a lot of different perspectives about disability, and to show that people live all across Australia with disability, that it's not just people in the city, people in the country, people in outback, people who are LGBTI, people who are trans, people who are mothers, people who are children, people who are older as well. So we've got a huge range of people in this book, and I'm very, very proud. And it's out in February next year. And one of the reasons we're doing this event is because coronavirus meant that our book wasn't launched in June. It was supposed to be out on the 2nd of June, but like many things, it got cancelled, and our event got cancelled and our book got postponed. So it'll be out in February. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you two, is that it's very, very important that we, still keep this discussion alive, and showing how events like this can make something so much more accessible for people who can't ordinarily get to physical events. So the first question I have for both of you is, why did you write or tell your story for Growing Up Disabled in Australia?
You want to go first, Arnie?
Well, you can go first if you want.
Yeah?
Yes.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why I decided to put my story in the book was because other people can see what those days were like on growing up in institutions, and being neglected and all that, and being not listened to, being ignored and all this, and then even through my domestic violence. That's another thing what I put in the book. And then in those days you weren't allowed to say if you're Indigenous as well. And since I found out that I am, which I had a feeling I was from a child because I used to go real brown, but I wasn't too sure. I wasn't. And I've learnt a lot more now on strong self-advocacy, standing up for yourself, having that voice to be heard, getting my story across, and saying about my paintings, my crocheting. The paintings all stand for the domestic violence, because I went through that domestic violence, I did. And it's telling people that if they want to put their story in the book, that they are willing to do it, and they will be listened to, and they will be taken note of. They will be. Yes.
So you're empowering other people.
Yes. Yes.
What about you, Gayle?
my main reason for wanting to be in the book was I wanted a black fella's voice in there, and so it was really good to know that there was another one in there. But I often find with a lot of anthologies that there's actually no voices of Indigenous people with who live with a disability, and I like to emphasise the fact that we live with a disability. Like you, I also had I had experience with domestic violence, which was pretty horrendous, and I wanted people to know, other people out there to know, particularly young girls or women out there to know that you can get away. It's not easy, and you know, a lot of people think that when they say, "Oh, why didn't you just leave?" But it's the leaving that's which is the most dangerous time. So I had to leave everything behind and come back to Sydney. And then I found out that I had post-polio syndrome, and I just got weaker and weaker, and ended up going into a wheelchair in 2004 and became very depressed and lost my mojo. And, you know, I was the kind of woman that was always dressed up when I went out, never went anywhere without my lipstick or my Chanel No. 5. And then I found myself, you know, not wanting to get out of bed. And the day that I went up the street in track pants was the day that I knew that things had to change. And, you know, I thought, oh, my God, this is it. You know, I can't get any lower than this going up the street in track pants. So you know, I pulled myself together and built a new life as a writer. I don't know why I thought that it was something I could do, but it seemed to me like the most logical way to go. Why, I'm not sure, but it's worked out really well. And I wanted the Aboriginal voice, but I wanted the voice of the survivor of a disabled woman with a disability, but I also wanted to touch on it as a survivor of domestic violence. So that was, you know, that was one of the reasons why I submitted my piece, and I was really pleased to be included in the anthology. Pleased and honoured.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to ask a question about why it's important that Aboriginal voices and people of colour voices. I mean, none of us are white on this panel, which is really great to see, and that's quite a rarity. Why is it very important, do you think, that Aboriginal voices are represented and people of colour voices are represented in literature and also in disability literature and arts?
Well, it's because, I mean, particularly people with disabilities. I mean, now we have a really strong Indigenous voice in literature. You know, like we're having people winning the Miles Franklin, winning the Stella Prize, being shortlisted for the you know, the Miles Franklin Award. And, you know, we've got a really strong Indigenous voice, but we don't have a strong voice for disabled people. And, I mean, we're too often people infantilise us. They speak over us, they speak around us, they speak, you know, under all, you know, anything but actually to us. And it's really important that we get out there and have our voices heard, that we're not a pity party for people out there. We're not your inspiration. We're not your, and it isn't anything. It's not a brilliant achievement to just get up in the morning, I mean, and get out into the world, you know. But people seem to think that our major achievements are actually just getting up, you know. And the number of times I've had people come up to me and go, oh, you know, total strangers, oh, it's so wonderful to see you out and about. And I'm going, I'm sorry, do I know you? And why is it wonderful? to see me out and about.
Mm.
And they can't they can't answer me because they won't actually directly say to me, "Oh, because you're in a wheelchair." I mean, it's like we're supposed to be hidden in a corner somewhere and quiet
Yeah.
and humble and
I know what it's
grateful
like,
for any
sis.
attention. And I don't want that. I will not be anybody's object of pity. And I don't know any any other disabled person that wants to be anybody's object of pity, and they don't particularly want to be somebody else's inspiration just for the mere fact of being alive on the planet. If you
Yeah,
don't, and that's why our voices need to be heard.
that's right.
Do you think that with in the wake of George Floyd's death and the prominence of Black Lives Matter overseas and in Australia, do you think that more voices are being heard, especially this last month? I would say.
Yes, a lot of it's a lot more people are beginning to realise the extent of the violence against people with like black people, people of colour. It's unfathomable to me about why do like I've thought about this when I was about 12. I mean, I actually was really lucky. I grew up in a town called Hay, and I didn't experience racism, but I heard about it and I saw it, and I used to think to myself, why would anybody hate us because of the colour of our skin? And I keep on, I've actually had white people say to me, why do you think there's racism? And I'm going, I'm not the person that you should be asking. You should be asking yourselves. You need to look inside your souls and ask yourself why you hate us. Or not even why. And there are people who don't hate us, but they don't know us. They're afraid of us. I mean, I've been, going down the street, with a black brother, and like you automatically see the body language change. If they're with a man, like the man puts the women and the children up against the wall, and he's sort of, standing up tall, and I'm ready to fight. And you're going, why? Why is it like that? And I think the time now is for non-black people, people of pink, people of white, if you will, to have conversations with themselves, to sit and talk in pubs, sit and talk in lounge rooms, sit and talk wherever they can, and ask themselves why they have this attitude, and look deep into their souls, because they may think that they don't have any prejudice when in fact they do, and it's lurking deep inside. And supporting us is about more than wearing a T-shirt and defacing a statue in our name. It's about fundamental personal change.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And it's like those days too, sister, that when we were introduced and that we were being treated like just a bunch of sheep.
Yeah.
And that from those days, and we're even being called monkey and all this with the people who were Aboriginals who were put into homes in those days. And like slaves. Yeah.
Yes, it's a mixed situation, and I just hope that we don't lose momentum, because in this day and age, it seems like they just go on to one issue after another.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is something that can't go away. This is something that we need to continue to change and to look inside ourselves. And we as black people and people of colour need to look into our own hearts. I mean, light-skinned black people and their attitude to darker-skinned people in their own countries. It's across the board, and we're not completely innocent of it either. And we must, it should be coming together, and it should be coming together at the most basic level. I think, having that conversation with each other. But first, white people need to really start looking at themselves,
Yeah.
and then we can all come together as people, and we don't need a huge platform in the beginning, but then we need to push for legislation. We need to push for real change in the upper echelons, but it has to start with us as human beings, and looking at each other as human beings, because there really is no such thing as race. It's just we're people who have adapted the way that the bodies adapt to their environment, to suit their environment. The major differences are language and culture.
Yep.
And if we learn to appreciate people's culture, each other's culture, then, like instead of, and then we'll probably, and if we get to know each other as well, then we'll realize that we all have the same wants and needs. We all want a good life for our children. We want a good life for our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. We want a world where every child can come into the world with equity, equality, and equity.
You mentioned, Gayle, that often people move from one issue to another, and this week I saw that publishers are scrambling to meet the demands of books by Black and Aboriginal people, and there's a real appetite now to read about race, to read books by people of diverse backgrounds, and I feel like we should always be reading those books. We should always be encouraging people to read those books, not just when the topic is trending on Instagram or social media, but all times,
Exactly, and stop ghettoizing our writing as well. I mean, my first book is basically a comedy book, but they don't actually read our books. They just put them in the Indigenous section or the First Nations or whatever we're called today, and whatever we'll be called tomorrow. But our books should be part and parcel of the whole Australian literary landscape.
Did you want to define what ghettoising is for those who don't know what that means?
It means, putting people in cultural ghettos. Yeah. Putting them in just so they don't actually have to deal with like that, oh, I want to read something about Aboriginal people, I'll just go to the Aboriginal section. But, there is so much and so, okay, I believe, you can have a section that's devoted to, learning about Aboriginal culture. But the writers of fiction and biography should just be with other writers, I find it really frustrating because I think that, as a writer, I think that a lot of us would be much wider read, would have a chance of having a bestseller if we were put in the categories that our book belongs to. Like mine, for instance, Me, Ant-Man and Fleabag was put into the comedy section of a library or a bookstore instead of just being put into the Indigenous. So stop sort of compartmentalizing us, leaving us out of the wider picture.
And what about for the ones who can just speak in their own language as well, and for the ones who can't even speak at all, and that with the pictures, because the pictures tell more than if they can't speak at all. You know what I mean?
Yes. So they could put, in the general sort of graphic novel or picture book areas, So, all kids parents can, when they're browsing for books for their children, can come across the absolutely beautiful children's books that have been put out by people like, Bronwyn Bancroft, for a start. And they're in the illustrated children's book section, so that they're not going directly to the Aboriginal section. They're going to the children's book section, the illustrated children's book I mean, and as I said, I write graphic novels, so my novels could be in the graphic novel section rather than just being put all lumped in together. They're more like to pull out a book from a children's section by someone like Bronwyn, for instance, and go, what a beautiful book. I really want my child to read this book, to see this book.
We want that from disabled authors as well, to be,
exactly.
Disability to be incidental and our genre to be the focus.
Exactly, that's exactly it.
And I feel that's why I'm so thankful to organisations like the Emerging Writers Festival to program us in the mainstream, and give us a platform and not ghettoise that. I'm going to move on now to talk a bit about COVID, because I guess that's why we're here. And I was thinking, it was funny, Gayle, when I've been on the Emerging Writers Festival advisory panel for the last few months, and we've been discussing and planning like lots of different physical events, and then obviously there was a change of tack when COVID came and everything was online. And when I got an email to say, let's invite Gayle, I thought, wow, that'd be great. I finally get to meet her. And then I realised we're going to do it online.
Have you got water then, Gayle?
Yes. Could you just hang on for a minute? I'm just going to grab some water.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Well, we'll keep talking. But one thing that I wanted to say was that because of COVID, everything has changed. Now work has changed. And aside from being a writer like Gayle, like Jane, I'm a speaker, and all of my speaking work, that's been in person has gone. So a lot of the speaking work that I do now has been online like this. Yes. And that's been really great, but it's been a weird time. And I want to talk a bit and ask you a bit about how COVID has changed your work, particularly your writing and speaking.
Yeah. And I'm not even on, I'm on the First People's Disability Network. I forgot to mention that when I was saying about the groups I did. Yeah. Because we've been doing the meetings over the internet on Reinforce, Saru, Writers Committee meeting, and First People's Disability meetings I haven't attached yet because I've had other meetings going on and that, So, and I've been to the Royal Commission as well. Doing by Zoom. Yeah, by Zoom. Yep. Yeah.
And one thing I really like is that, even though we're all meeting in different places, we've got Michelle here interpreting today. And on some chats, there's allowed to be captions as well. So it's made things a lot more accessible in some ways and bringing people together, but also stop people from doing things. What about you, Gayle?
Well, I actually really like it. It means that I've been getting quite a bit of work. I thought, oh my God, I had so much cancelled. Particularly the Sydney Writers Festival, I was heartbroken about that. Yeah. But I'm obviously not the only one. But gradually people have adapted the technology so that we can do things like this, which actually makes it easier for someone like me because, sometimes I have episodes with post-polio where the fatigue is overwhelming, but I can sit up and front up for a Zoom meeting or something online, and I'm just hoping that when things supposedly get back to normal, that this is something that will always be considered because I think it's a boon for people with disabilities. This kind of technology, using it particularly in the arts. I've got another 2 conferences coming up on online this month alone, and other things coming up after that. So I'm actually really enjoying being able to do this. I've got to get my technology straight, obviously. I haven't used it, but now I have to learn how to use it.
I'm quite enjoying it as well. I do miss the people, and I miss meeting people, and I miss going out. I used to travel a lot before COVID, and now I don't. But today is the first day I'm working with someone. Jane's the first person I've worked with in a room for 3 months. The last person I saw was Dylan Alcott when I worked with him for his podcast. So, and it's a weird thing, you know, I work for Melbourne Fringe, and we've all been working at home now for over 3 months. And so I haven't seen my colleagues. I think I saw them on 3 months ago, just briefly. But yeah, I haven't been in the office for more than 3 months. We're all working at home and doing these things. But one thing I have found is that when these events are on at night time, after work, say after I finish work at Fringe, it really extends my day. Sometimes I don't finish until 9, 10 o'clock at night. So it's a weird, it's a long day, but it's good. One of my access needs, I don't have too many access needs, but one of my access needs has been a disability parking permit, because when it's very hot in the summer, I don't want to have to park miles away. So I don't want to walk in the sun, in the heat. So I have this parking permit, but I realised that I can use it now in a regular car space and get longer time without having to pay for it, which is great. And so now I need, because I don't want to catch public transport because I'm at risk of getting COVID, I use my parking permit now a bit more, which has been useful because I can drive, you know.
I miss the audience though, you know, like I miss the adrenaline when you're up there on stage in front of people and reacting with them, and you can see and feel their reaction to what you're saying, and you feed off it, you know, like it's not the same when you're doing it, you know. I don't get that buzz, you know. And
I definitely,
and the nervous energy that you get when you when you have an audience, and I miss that, and I miss meeting the people afterwards, you know, like chatting with them, and also it's a good way to sell your books, you know, like they have them there, and you can sign them and chat with people, and
and one of the reasons that we put off releasing Growing Up Disabled was because it takes a lot to sell a book, and it takes a lot of big physical events, and the other reason is because a lot of people in the book who have contributed, you know, everyone is disabled, and a lot of people are at risk of COVID. So to come together, I mean, on the day that we launched, if we had launched in Victoria on the 2nd of June when it was meant to be out, we probably could have had 10 people at a restaurant, but, you know, that's not going to sell many books. You want to sell hundreds of books at a time.
Exactly.
And you want to give the book the best chance. And I have received on my, I don't know about you or you, Jane or Gayle, but I've received a number of quite aggressive and disappointed messages from people to tell me that I should have released a book no matter what, no matter just because COVID's on, we shouldn't have stopped it. And, well, there's that, to give the audience a good chance to read it. But there's also the idea that we need to make sure that it's accessible as possible for the contributors. And one of the accessibility things is not having too many people all together who are at risk. And so we had to put it off until next year to give it the best chance of getting out in the world, and to give our contributors and also our readers who are disabled the best chance at staying safe.
And with the Indigenous, I've heard that with the Aboriginals, which you know, Auntie, that they are much easier to catch this virus. They are, that's what I've heard. And with the rallies that were on a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't in it, but I was supporting them with it for the black fellas, and that what happened overseas. And we just need to have that voice to be heard and stand up for our rights for people with a disability and all different types of disability out there. And for the ones who do want to come and tell their story to the Royal Commission, we need to get them that they will be listened to now. It's not like those olden days that they are ignored.
That's right. And you're absolutely right about things, you know, like the best audiences are, you know, like when you're at festivals and people are in the, you know, in the now, and they've heard you speak, They would have heard Jane speak, they may have heard me speak, or Carly, or any number of the contributors speak at the festivals.
Yes.
And they will go over the road and or, you know, over to a table, and you're able to sign the books and speak to people. And it would have actually disappeared without a trace if it had been released now. It's all very well for people to be aggressive and tell you that you should have released it now. But as you said, Carly, we need to give the book the best possible chance.
Absolutely. Because it's hard enough to get disabled voices heard when a pandemic is.
That's right.
So
this is so unique, you know. This book is so unique. That's why.
Making. I'm going to interrupt for a minute here to let people know that they can ask, people who are watching, not us, but let people who are watching know that they can ask questions to hashtag EWF20 on Twitter or on YouTube while they're watching this. So we want to get some questions to answer. Yeah. But yeah, you're right, Gayle. This is a history-making book. We haven't had another book like this. The Growing Up series has been so successful and so well received. There's Growing Up Asian in Australia, edited by Alice Pong. Growing Up Queer in Australia, edited by Benjamin Law. Growing Up Gayle's gone. I think we have to just wait till Gayle comes back, but I'll continue talking. We've also got Growing Up African in Australia, edited by Maxine Beneba Clark, and Growing Up Aboriginal in Australia, edited by Anita Heiss. Here comes Gayle again. Welcome back, Gayle. And it's really important that we do that. I also want to mention that there is another anthology filled with disabled writers coming out from America very soon, the Disability Visibility Project, which I think is out through Penguin on the 30th of June. I've just ordered it online a couple of days ago. So that's called the Disability Visibility Project, edited by Alice Wong. And Alice does amazing work all over the world, bringing disabled voices together. So in addition to ours, there is that one as well. Hopefully we get some good questions. Gayle touched on the idea that we really need to make sure that options like Zoom and, Auslan Online and different things are available after COVID. What else would you like to see in a post-COVID world for writers and for speakers?
The one thing I've said to Sue from Saru over the internet, because she's done newsletters about because of COVID-19, that I've said, and even to Open Place, I've said that once this COVID-19 is completely gone, and when we go back to our organisations to continue what we are doing, we should celebrate a big party.
Hopefully not spread it even more.
No, but you know what I mean?
When it's completely gone.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Once it's completely gone, we can celebrate.
I guess so. Dancing in the street. Although I think I'm like a lot of writers in that I think we're quite okay being solitary. Yeah. You know, like I'm social when I'm social, but I mean, whereas isolating has driven some people mad, I'm perfectly okay with it. Yeah. And I'm wondering how I'm going to cope when I actually do have to go out again.
I was joking last year. I don't know how many plane trips I took last year, but I reckon it would have been about 40.
What?
And, I travelled so much because my first book, Say Hello, was out last year, and I travelled a lot. I went, around the country, and I went overseas twice. And a lot of people at the end of the year were saying to me when I was doing speeches, "What are you going to do in 2020?" And I said, "Hopefully have a rest." And I feel like I've jinxed it because I have had a rest, which has been nice. And I feel I've gotten more time to write now because I feel sometimes as writers, if we're speaking, we don't get much time to write. I just need to cough. So keep talking, Jane or Gayle.
I agree with you there. And it in a lot of ways, for a lot of writers, it's actually a really unnatural state of being when a lot of us are quite solitary people, to actually have to go out there and spruik our work, be on stage and and be performers and be entertaining.
Yeah.
And it can be really exhausting because I don't think that a lot of us when we became writers thought that we that's something that we would have to do.
Yeah, I agree. And
definitely.
that reminded me, Gayle, one of the projects I'm working on for Growing Up Disabled in Australia, which I'm really, really pleased to do, is a media project. So I'm partnering with Children and Young People with Disability Australia and also Equity Trustees, who gave us a grant to do this. And I'm providing a media pack and a promotion pack to all the contributors. It will be out soon to the contributors to teach them how to spruik their book, because I know that this doesn't come naturally to a lot of people, to talk about their book at festivals, in media, on social media. And also I've developed a guide for the media, because it's very, very important to me that, and I know the other contributors, that this book is reported on well by the media, because as you said earlier, so much of us, so much of the expectations of us is around inspiration or pity. And I hope that the book is not seen as inspirational or pitiful. I hope that we're seen for our skills and our lives and our, the whole people. So, I consulted a little bit with Naz Campanella from ABC in developing these guidelines for the media, and also working with a range of people to develop the contributor media guidelines as well. So I really hope that helps people who are quite new to promoting the book.
And I'm just going to pop in and say, when this is finished, before this is finished, since there's the four of us,
yes,
if we can get a photo of the whole three, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Everyone smile. I'll do that now. Okay, I've done that now. We've got questions coming now.
Okay.
Someone asked me, I don't know if I can read that. Jessica, are you feeling, no, Millie, I can't stay past 1:15. Okay, our Auslan interpreter is going to have to go very soon. Yeah. Okay, no worries. Might have to go. Sorry. Okay. Our Auslan interpreter has to leave at 1:15, just letting you know. So we will be without an interpreter for 15 minutes. But thank you so much, Michelle, for being here. It's nearly 1:50.
Michelle.
The Auslan.
Oh, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
We are going to, Michelle's going to sign off soon.
Yep.
There was a question that popped up, but I couldn't read it because it went down. Okay, here we go. Carly, Jane, and Gayle, do you ever censor yourself when expressing your real and potentially traumatic experiences in your writing about being disabled in Australia, in case it might not be acceptable by the general public because they don't have the same experiences? That is a really good question. So do we ever, not write our full story or avoid telling some parts of our story because people might be uncomfortable by it, or we might be uncomfortable by it?
Well, my institutional days, which I've got nothing to hide with that, but some of my other story I'd like to tell out there, but I can't at the moment. I mean, I can, but I'm just being careful, you know what I mean? With my dad's side, you know what I mean? Yes. And that, and I can talk about my domestic violence that I went through, and that I can talk about my self-advocacy and about me being free as a bird as well, and getting that word out there for other people to come forward and tell their story to the Royal Commission, because they will be believed and they will be listened to if they want to do that.
Do you ever censor yourself?
It's the question about it, because people haven't had the same experience, but we all are individuals, and we all have different experiences. And most of us aren't Olympic runners, but we all want to read about Kathy Freeman. You know what I mean? How do we learn about people? And I don't care if they're uncomfortable. I mean, I want them to read and understand us. I mean, go through that discomfort. It's educational for you.
Yeah.
It will help you grow as a person.
Yep.
I mean, I am not at. I mean, I read things and I watch things that I find extremely uncomfortable, and I sometimes have to ask myself, why do I feel like that? And I know from my own personal experience that I do grow and learn.
Yep.
And that you need to take yourself out of your comfort zone. I mean, otherwise, what's your life? It's just one long boring, me episode, one long boring, me. Learn about other people, learn about other cultures.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're uncomfortable, well, so what? I can't be worried about that.
Yeah.
I have a story to tell. Yeah. We all have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And you can feel however you like, but the main thing is that you need to examine why you feel that way.
Yeah,
and learn
I feel that way. And I have had, like, I get people all the time, just like friends and also people I don't really know but follow me, tell me that I've made them very uncomfortable and they have to unfollow me. And I think, well, that's not my problem. That's your problem.
Exactly. It's not your problem.
It's not. Now we've got some more questions. Carly, Jane and Gayle, how do you overcome barriers that you face in maintaining motivation while writing whilst having a disability? So how do we keep going? Sometimes days will be hard as being disabled. How do we keep going? How do we keep writing, keep working while we have a disability? I can answer that one if you like to start with. I write a lot in bed, and so that helps me. That helps me, rest my body and rest my skin. And so often I can write when I don't feel very well, and I still get it done. And like you said, Gayle, sometimes these Zoom things make us be able to front up to something that we wouldn't have been able to before because we would have been too, unwell or in pain or whatever to attend. So that's how I keep motivating. What about you?
How I keep motivating is I do painting, which I've got here, and that's if I'm under stress or if there's something that triggers something from the past that I try and calm down, and I do painting, crocheting and knitting, and sometimes listen to music which can relax me and that, and I just like take it day by day and that.
Well, I work in bed like you do. And I work in the early hours of the morning when I'm the most awake. So when everybody else is in bed, I'm sort of out there with the night crowd. Like if you're on Facebook, you see the same names pop up, and we all kind of know each other and don't even cheat on each other. And I have to preserve my energy, and if I am not well, I just say no, I can't do it. I always tell people when they if they get me to do something for them, if they commission me for something, I'll say, look, you have to understand that I have post-polio syndrome, and there may be a week where I'm actually completely flat on my back from it. So you have to allow for this, and I'm upfront with them about it. But I've found I've never actually missed a deadline. It's having the comfort of knowing that that I can, that they're going to give me that space.
That's right. Definitely.
And I basically, I basically tell them, look, I can be really ornery, so it's best to tell me what you want. I'll do it, send it to you, and then you can tell me what you need changed. It's not to chat with me about it. It's best not to be on my case all the time because I may be tired, I may be grumpy, and you wouldn't like me.
I think in addition to being disabled, we have to deal with the ableism, and that can be quite hard to keep motivated through that. So, it is about self-care, setting boundaries, like you said, Gayle,
Yes.
and taking time out. And, you know, sometimes I don't want to write at all about disability. You know, I can't wait to write about something that is not about disability. So,
well, this is my first real disability writing, you know, like all of my other stuff does not include disability. But I just sort of came to the conclusion that it's something that I need to do, you know, like
definitely.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, since there's 3 people here with a disability, just us 3, take a photo of just us 3.
I'll do it afterwards. We've just got to get through the questions. So we got another question about what are some other books that we can read by disabled authors. So there's lots by Gayle Kennedy, which aren't to do with disability.
Yes, they're not.
Do you want to just remind us of your titles?
I mean, there's Me, Ant-Man and Fleabag, which is it's basically a road trip, and it's basically a love letter to my people, and it's also a window into our world. And the graphic novels are basically about uplifting and giving kids pride in their Aboriginality. But also not just that, but kids is. I think we need to get people when they're kids, and these books are about you know, understanding each other, respecting each other, learning from each other, and identifying also different forms of bullying. You know, I don't think people realise that bullying is not simply about, you know, copping a smack in the mouth. It can be, you know, very, very subtle.
Absolutely.
And that really know, you know, and if you went to someone and said, look, I'm being bullied, they would go, I don't see it, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just going to mention some other authors as well, Gayle. As I said, we've got the Disability Visibility Project anthology that's from America. In Australia, Kay Kerr and Anna Watley, who are both with my agent, they have just released books on autism and one is on autism and ADHD. Kay's is called Please Don't Hug Me, and Anna's is called Peter Liar's Racing Normal. They're both young adult books and out now. We've also got Haben Girma, who is an American woman. I believe she's Ethiopian, and she's written about being the first deaf-blind law graduate from Harvard, which is incredible. She just spoke to Naz Campanella on the ABC recently. There's also Kia Brown's The Pretty One. There's a book that I really want to read called, I think it's called Disfigured, and it's about fairy tales and facial difference and disability, and how fairy tales are written. How disability is, you know, portrayed, which I'm really keen on reading about how disability is portrayed in the media. There are so many books that I've got. Actually, I'm just starting a Instagram challenge about disability. It's called Disability Reads, and every month from July we are reading a different book by a disabled author. And like you, Gayle, not all of them are about disability, but the books are, you know, written by disabled people. I also wrote Say Hello, which is a memoir. And, that's exciting. I'm just going to take you through a few more questions. I think there aren't very many minutes to go. Are you feeling a certain stress and expectation about responding during COVID that is actually stopping you from writing? So are we a bit stressed out during COVID? And so does that mean we're not writing as much or working as much?
Go on, sister, you go.
I'm not stressed out at all.
That's what I was just going to say.
I can't say that I'm stressed out. I mean, so I like being at home. I would have been a lot more stressed if I couldn't go out and see my favourite bands, but because they're not playing, and I do feel really sorry for my musician friends, you know, they're doing it really tough. But I'm not, you know, I mean, that would have stressed me, but I generally, I think that you learn over the years as a person with a disability, particularly when it involves fatigue, you eventually get over the fear of missing out, and you make a conscious decision to say, look, I'm not going to this event because I don't feel well. And you have to get over that, I think, and learn to live with that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Are you stressed?
Nah, I'm relaxed, actually. Some nights what I do, some nights at night, after I've been down to the homeless, I stay home doing catering, watching TV, and I stay up until about 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and then I go to bed, and I wake up about 11 or 12. If I've got no meetings on.
Oh, that's funny. I'm quite enjoying it, actually. I like being at home, cooking, reading. I've read a lot. I listen to audiobooks a lot, so I've been reading a lot, cooking a lot. I bought this amazing, really big cast iron pot, so I've been making different things most nights, and I've been liking that. Yeah, I'm not too stressed. Awesome. I was stressed at the start about losing so much income because, speaking gigs pay very well, and I've lost a lot, but that's okay. I was lucky with some grants that I applied for, and I know other people were as well. I had another question here. Can we access the advice that I mentioned on my blog? I'm not sure what advice that was, but I have a lot of different things on my blog around books to read by disabled people, and also how to write your own story. Have you got a website, Gayle?
No. I am on Facebook. So, but I am going to, now that I've got this new computer, I'm going to get a website together.
Right.
I realise I'm going to have to get into the new world.
We'll
get a website happening very soon.
So my blog's carlyfindlay.com.au. What about you?
I'm on Facebook.
You're on Facebook?
Yes.
Yep.
And I love it.
You're very active on
I
Facebook.
know, because I'm with a lot of Indigenous and even my family as well. I'm on Facebook and that, and I just love it.
Great.
And with Reinforce and all that.
Amazing. Yeah. So we've only got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to let you know that you can pre-order Growing Up Disabled in Australia.
Yep.
You can go to the Black Ink Books website. Emerging Writers Festival might tweet the link if we're lucky, if we ask nicely, please. And you can pre-order the book. It's going to be out in February, and Jane Rosengrave will be in it. Her story's called Free as a Bird. I can't remember what your story is called, Gayle, but I am going to look right now.
Can't remember either.
You can't remember either. It's so long since I mean, writing books is a very long process, and this started for me in July 2018, so long process. I still can't find Gayle's.
Gayle?
I don't know. We can't remember, but go and pre-order Disabled in Australia. Now I feel really bad. No, here it is. It's called Red Dust, Jet Streams, and Chanel No. 5. I love that title. I don't think that you had a title on it when I was reading your piece, Gayle. So that is really great. So
you actually got back to me and said you're going to need a title. So I had to come up with something.
Before we all go, can we get a selfie? I'll take those off.
Hold on. I have to save the other selfie first. There's a lot of tech.
Hang on.
Okay, hold on. I'm going back to the selfie now. All right, let's get a selfie now. You ready?
Yep.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you for your questions. Thank you to Gayle and Jane. Thank you to Michelle, the Auslan interpreter. Thank you to Millie from Emerging Writers Festival. And thank you to you for watching.
And thank you, Auntie, for joining in. And I had a good time joining in and saying my piece.
Thank you very much, Carly, and thank you everyone for watching, and thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Thank you. Keep safe, and we hope to meet you in person one day.
Yes.
Yes. Come up and say hello.
Definitely.
Bye.